So the thing about a trade war is that one side fires a shot, then the other side fires back. In the latest round, China has responded to the White House with $25 million in tariffs. And while recent polling shows international trade at the top of just a few people's minds, there's growing evidence that it is changing opinions of some voters. Joining me on set is Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter for The Washington Post, David Fahrenthold. And joining me from New York is NBC News correspondent Joline Kent, who covers business and technology. Joe, I want to start with you. Can you just help us understand, we see these headlines, X million or X billion in tariffs on these goods. At what point are people really going to start to feel this in their daily lives?
Well, we're going to start seeing it come through very soon. What we're starting to see is how this will actually impact jobs. Throughout the country, our team has been reporting on how layoffs have begun to happen, even throughout the Midwest, ranging from textiles like nails to other kinds of factory goods and agriculture as well. So the issue here is not just the back and forth between the U.S. and China. This is really about the American consumer. When does the cost get passed down? Because these companies are going to be taking a big hit. Soybean farmers, folks who make cheese, all kinds of different manufacturing industries, and almost every single type of food category that you can think of at the grocery store is slated to be impacted because of this back and forth between Beijing and Washington, D.C. So we're expecting to see probably about 170,000 jobs, according to one economist, eliminated within the year. And then if President Trump goes forward and continues to implement more trade changes and tariffs on other countries, including those in Europe, Mexico, and Canada, as he has forecasted, you may see us enter a recession territory, and that would be about 700,000 jobs, American jobs, on the line here. So for a president who's really looking to create American jobs, bring them back, and highlight manufacturing, a lot of workers are finding themselves between a rock and a hard place here, Casey.
Yeah, and some reporters have been looking at anecdotal impacts of these trade policies in key midterm races, like in Tennessee. The Associated Press interviewed a hog farmer named Jimmy Tosh. The AP wrote, quote, Tosh, a third-generation farmer who almost always votes Republican, said he's voting this fall for Blackburn's Democratic opponent, former Governor Phil Bredesen, in part because Trump's trade wars are hurting his family business, a sizable one with some 400 employees and 30,000 pigs. The cost of steel needed for new barns is up, Tosh said, and the expanding pork market stands to suffer under new tariffs. So, Kimberly Atkins, at what point, and Mark Lauder, I'm going to give you a chance to answer this question too in a second. At what point do Trump voters start blaming the president? For things that are going on in their lives?
I think there is definitely going to be a tipping point, because if you remember, his supporters were very in favor of his strong message that the U.S. is in unfair trade deals, that we need to fix them, that we need to get tough with countries like China. But in the actual starting of a trade war, maybe not this initial salvo may not be felt across the country, but if it escalates and they do more and more, and he said he's willing to go up to $500 billion in tariffs on China, that's really going to have an impact on farmers, on consumers, on businesses. And if people start feeling it in their pocketbook, they're going to realize that this perhaps was not the best way to sort of rectify any unfairness he saw in the trade war. I'm not sure it'll happen before the midterms, but he's got to be worried about 2020.
Yeah, Mark Lauder, I mean, are voters willing to give these are states? These are the states that gave President Trump the presidency, and by this much. I mean, a very slim number of voters that handed him this electoral college victory. Is he completely Teflon with them, or is there a risk?
I think they're giving him a certain benefit of the doubt. There was a study that just came out earlier this week, I believe, from Investors Business Daily, which showed consumer and economic confidence the highest in rural areas of America since the turn of the century, the highest in the Midwest since 2002. And this was just recently done, so it includes the most recent back and forth on trade. I think they are giving him a fair shake, because they know that we have been involved in these unfair trade practices for decades. Presidents of both parties have talked about needing to do something about it, and they see that this is the president that they elected who said, I would do it, and he's actually doing it. There are bumps in the road, sure, and I think there will be a certain amount of forgiveness to allow this to just a certain amount. I won't put a timeline on it, but I think there is a certain amount of time they're going to say, you're doing what you told us you would do, now let's see it work. And we'll see how that plays out.
David Fahrenthold, you've done some reporting on the president's own businesses in China. Is there any interplay here between, what's going on in this war and his own bottom line from that perspective?
The two main connections between Trump's business and China are these two overseas developments, one in Dubai and one in Indonesia, where Trump has a license deal. He's being paid to operate a golf course or put his name on a business that's being built, and the same developments have Chinese state companies helping to build them. So Trump and the Chinese businesses aren't doing business directly, but he benefits from the infrastructure and the developments they're building.
Okay.
So I don't think the trade war will have a direct impact on those relationships, but this is certainly a case where the government of China controls businesses that could help Donald Trump down the road.
And interesting.
Yeah, Joe, go ahead.
On that very good point that he just made, you have to think about these multinational companies that are really driving the American economy, like Apple and these big technology companies that manufacture so many of their goods in China. They also sell to the Chinese market. In some cases, it's their second biggest or maybe their biggest market out there. How is it going to impact those CEOs, those shareholders? So many of those stocks, of course, are in your 401k. And you have CEOs like Apple CEO Tim Cook going to the White House trying to make the case here to ask the president to tread very carefully, because this is a complicated issue that could really have a major economic impact, not just on what you're buying and how much you're spending, but your investments.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And at a time when the U.S. economy is humming, the latest round of Chinese tariffs is expected to cool demand for everything from American cars to crustaceans. Vaughn Hilliard reports from Maine.
See the nice, beautiful, shiny shell?
Off the coast of Maine, lobster season is at its summer peak.
I've been lobstering since I was 13, and I'm 63.
Jack Thomas is one of 12,000 Mainers who troll these waters in an industry that accounts for $1.5 billion of the state's economy.
The big boys.
But on Friday, in a growing global trade war, China fired back with a 25% tariff on the lobsters so many people here rely on.
We'd like to see prices go up, not down for sure, so we'll have to see how it affects us.
It had been a booming, open market for these fishermen. The U.S.'s rising tide of exports to China has exploded in recent years, lifting all boats with it. How many lobsters are you sending out a day?
We probably send out 15 to 20,000 lobsters almost every day.
And how much of that is going overseas?
Overseas, over 60% of our lobsters.
And how much to China?
To China alone, it's usually over 20%.
Tom Adams is a major lobster distributor. He exports them from hundreds of local fishermen and co-ops to overseas markets. He just invested $1.5 million into the company's expansion, not foreseeing what was to come. How long can you afford to be patient in this?
We can't afford to be patient at all.
It's the same story an hour down the road in Portland, where Mark Merle's company had just entered the Chinese marketplace.
I just spent 3 months with a potential new buyer in Shanghai that wanted 40,000 pounds a week. And then when the tariff scare came, now it's radio silence.
And then there are the people who haul the traps day in and day out, like Cyrus Sleeper. He's fished these waters since the age of 9 and now brings in 50,000 pounds of lobster every year.
Are you frustrated? Yes, frustrated. It seems like they had just gotten rolling and had been building good relationships in China. To put a damper on that at this point is very frustrating.
Some here look to the president to be a boon for the economy.
I was hopeful.
You were hopeful for the Trump administration when it started?
Absolutely.
Where is that now?
I'm concerned. Some of the decisions in the way those decisions are being made aren't considering the ripple effect.
Now there's worry that China will look elsewhere for its lobster, like Canada just to the north. And the people here in Maine are stuck, quickly searching elsewhere to make up those millions of dollars.
Everything that I have, my car, house, everything that I own is from lobstering.
That was our Vaughn Hilliard reporting on a very difficult hardship assignment. It's summer in Maine eating lobsters. But I do want to turn to David Fahrenthold's latest reporting in the Washington Post about Mar-a-Lago applying to the Labor Department for permission to hire 61 foreign workers during its peak winter season. This is a different story than the tariffs, but still one about American businesses facing interesting challenges under President Trump. We know that there are some other places that are struggling to get the foreign workers they need. We had covered the crab industry in Maryland, for example, and they can't, get the visas that they need. I mean, first of all, do we think the president's going to get preferential treatment for these? I mean, isn't this something of a? I mean, these are not sure bets, right? If you apply for these visas.
Well, so they've said the president won't get preferential treatment. He's lucky in that they break these visas up by summer and winter. So there's a huge amount of competition for the half of the 33,000 that are put out for the summer because they're needed for crab picking, for landscaping, for golf courses. He's applying for the winter to serve drinks to people when they fly down from New York.
People go to Florida in the winter.
And there's not that much competition for seasonal workers in the winter. So he's always had less.
How lucky.
Yeah, how lucky, exactly. So they said he won't get any preferential treatment. He may be better off anyway because of the season.
But this is something where, I mean, he has tried to limit these visas dramatically, right?
There's a broader effort by the Trump administration, sort of encouraged by people like Tom Cotton, senator from Arkansas, to try to restrict legal immigration, means of legal immigration, on the logic that temporary workers, immigrants, low-skill immigrants drive down wages for American workers. That they make it possible for employers to pay less, to crowd American workers out, to give less benefits. And so doing this is exactly the kind of thing that people like Tom Cotton have said, look, we shouldn't do. We should, instead of bringing in somebody from Romania to do this job, why don't you pay more? Why don't you give better benefits? Why don't you try harder to find people who are here in America looking for a job? The jobs that Mar-a-Lago is looking for, they're not rocket science jobs. They're cooks and waiters. Right? There's a lot of people in Florida who may have those qualifications.
Mark Lauder, should the president hire American workers for these jobs?
But today, and I think this is in your point, in your story, David, is that Mar-a-Lago has to prove to the Department of Labor that it has sought to advertise and hire Americans before these visas would be approved, and they would have to show that they tried, they couldn't. And it's also not unusual, and other seasonal clubs down in the area also do the same thing.
That's right. Palm Beach has a lot of seasonal work. A lot of people down there, Trump's competitors, rely on these exact same kind of workers. His club has always done what's legally required to show they're trying to recruit American workers, but it's less than you would think. Usually it's placing some classified ads in the Palm Beach Post, which ask people if they're interested to apply by fax.
Oh. I'm sure that many people have fax machines in this day and age. David Farenthold, Mark Lauder, Kimberly Atkins, thank you all so much for your time tonight. We really appreciate it.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.